What makes Daniel different from savants like Dane, and so extremely valuable to science, is that he can describe what's going on inside his head.
I experience numbers in a very visual way, using colours, texture, shape and form. Sequences of numbers form landscapes in my mind. It just happens. It's like having a fourth dimension. One, for example, would be very bright and shiny number. It's almost like somebody flashing a light in my face. You know, it's a very interesting experience. Number 2 is kind of like a movement, right to left, kind of like a drifting motion. 5 is like the clap of thunder or the sound of a wave against a rock. 6 is very small. It's actually the number I find hardest to experience in any sort of meaningful visual way, so it's often the absence of anything. It's like a hole or a chasm or like a black hole. Number 9 is the biggest number. It's very tall. It can be intimidating.
Daniel says he sees every number up to 10,000 as a distinct shape or image. Until recently, many researchers would have dismissed this as mumbo-jumbo. But there is now a sound, scientific explanation. Different parts of our brain are specialized for different tasks. Juggling numbers, for example, or seeing shapes. If cross-activation occurs between areas that are normally separate, then things can get very mixed up. You might hear a sound and see a color, or think a number and feel emotion. Scientists call this weird phenomenon synesthesia.
Sort of
Julian Asher, a researcher at Cambridge University, experiences synesthesia himself, but is struck by how peculiar it is in Daniel.
For most synesthetes, what they see is much more abstract. For instance, I see what almost might be colored flames, this sort of a flickering, flowing movement. But Daniel sees very concrete shapes, which is quite unusual.
Is the entire number drifting upwards, or
yes.
is it...
Julian believes that Daniel's complex imagery is the key to his gigantic memory.
When he's recalling a number that's 22,500 digits, what he's doing is moving mentally through a synesthetic landscape and effectively reading the numbers from the landscape.
But are Daniel's number shapes also the key to his maths ability? To find out more, we're sending him to San Diego's Center for Brain Studies in California, where he'll be grilled by skeptical scientists. First, though, he'll be traveling across America and putting some of his mental powers to the test. Daniel is in New York, but not as we know it. For someone who reads numbers into everything, the city is giving him a strange vibe.
Being in New York with all these huge skyscrapers, it's intimidating for me, and all the time I had this sensation that I'm being surrounded by nines. The number 9 is all around me. It can be a very nerve-wracking experience.
Before he encounters the scientists, Daniel is making one last stop. Inspired by Rain Man, he's in Las Vegas to see if he can use his amazing memory to beat the house. For someone who hates crowds and flashing lights, it's an unsettling kind of place.
I haven't actually been in a casino before. I play cards with friends sometimes. They don't like playing with me.
In blackjack, the dealer has the advantage. And even for a card counter, it still comes down to chance.
It was actually really hard to concentrate because the bright lights, the noise, the atmosphere, a strange mixture of tension and excitement, all in one.
Daniel is playing 2 rounds with 8 decks each. That's over 400 cards to keep track of at once. Round 1 is a disaster. Daniel's chips are disappearing fast. And memory alone just isn't giving him an edge. Eventually, he changes strategy and follows his instincts.
At the end, I was just relying on intuition and the imagery as it flowed into my mind.
At the most unpromising moment, Daniel decides to gamble.
The house had a 10, which is a very good card, and I was given 2 sevens, and that's not a good hand, and it's particularly not a good hand against a 10. What I decided to do was split the sevens. An unusual move, statistically speaking not the best move, but something in my head was telling me to do that anyway because of the imagery that I was experiencing, and so I split the sevens, doubled my bet, was given a third card, and it also turned out to be a 7. And at this stage I wasn't really sure of the rules of the game because this is the first time I've played blackjack in a casino, so I asked, can I split those two? And she's surprised, but she says, sure, if you want to. So she splits those, and so I now have 3 hands at one time against a 10. And the people behind me are tutting, and they're saying, what is he doing? You know, he's playing 3 hands against a 10. He's splitting 7s against a 10. He's crazy. And then she draws the remaining cards for each 7.
He hits 21 on his first hand. And again on his second.
21.
That's 2 out of 2. Who'd bet against a hat-trick now?
That's 3 21s.
His sixth sense proves a winner. And in one fell swoop, Daniel squares his losses.
How did you get that?
Good one.
I don't care if I lose now, that was fantastic.
But Daniel needs to stay sharp as he heads for California and the showdown that really counts. At San Diego's Center for Brain Studies, he's about to face a series of tests. Does he really have some kind of sixth sense? An ability with numbers that goes beyond just memory? Neuroscientist Professor Ramachandran and his team are intrigued by the idea, but have their doubts.
When Rama first came to me and said, hey, we've got this math savant that's coming here, and he can do 4x4 multiplication, and he can recognize primes, and he can do division out to so many decimal places, I thought, yeah, he's probably faking it, or he's got it memorized. You know, there's all sorts of techniques, and I'm very much a big skeptic of this.
With the pleasantries over, the testing can begin.
27 to the power of 6. Oh, can you do it to the power of 7?
Yes, okay. 1 0 4 6 0 3 5 3 2 0 3.
Excellent.
Better than the calculator. I need to see whether or not that 03 is correct, but you know, I have a feeling it would be.
31 to the power of 6.
Daniel's jet lag is wrecking his concentration and slowing him up.
Seven 5 0 3 6 8 1.
Spectacular.
Daniel has certainly impressed the scientists with his ability to calculate, but they're keeping an open mind about his method.
Okay, here we are confronted with somebody who claims to have amazing computational skills, and when we tested him with some simple numbers, doing a two-digit number like 37 to the power of 7, very, very quickly he gave us the accurate answer. And we did this with several different numbers. The question is, how is he doing it?
He says the answers come to him spontaneously out of his mental imagery.